What's your favorite shit post and or meme? My favorite shit post. Fuck, what was it? There was something that made me really laugh. I don't know. I can't remember. I'll mention it if I remember. John just doesn't care about his fans. Confirmed. Oh, well done. You figured it out. What's your most anticipated game, John? I don't know. What am I looking forward to? The Last of Us Part 2, I guess. That would be number 1 on my list. That's a while away, though. And I don't even have a PS4. I'm actually... Thanks to you guys, well, I mean, the guys support me on Patreon anyway. And the fact that, I'm getting a little bit of revenue on from my music sales and on YouTube, my ad revenue, even though that's probably going to change. I'm probably going to start earning a little bit less on there now, again, because YouTube keeps coming out with some new fucking policy that translates to everyone makes a little bit less money and YouTube just keeps more money. That's what essentially every update boils down to, right? So anyway, I have enough money now that I feel like I can buy a new editing PC. But I've been holding off on that because of the fucking Meltdown and Spectre thing. You guys know about this, right? The Intel and ARM processors being vulnerable to malware known as Meltdown and Spectre. And these two things, they do different things. But they're both basically about stealing information that's stored in the memory banks of processors. Taking advantage of a flaw that's been built into the hardware of these processors ever since they existed. So, not just Intel processors, but ARM processors. And ARM stands for Acorn RISC machine. And it's like an abbreviation within an abbreviation. And I can't remember what RISC stands for, but I know that RI means reduced instruction. So what that basically means is that ARM processors have a particular processor architecture that demands less transistors in the construction of it and is just ultimately cheaper to manufacture, at least relative to other processors that were on the market at the time. So ARM and Intel processors, ever since they were created, have been vulnerable to this exploit that has only just been discovered now. So like this has been a vulnerable exploit for like decades and is only now being discovered and like proven with like malware examples, like professionals are going to other professionals saying, "Hey, look, we'll give you a live demonstration of how we can exploit these processors," and then they provide proof that, "Look, see, we can do this." And it's like, "Oh shit, I guess this is a big problem." And so we're only hearing about it now, and apparently that it's all been patched. I mean, if you're with the Windows family and you've done an update and everything, I think your processor is fine. Well, fine as in that exploit can't be used against you anymore, but it comes at the cost of hindering the performance of the CPU by between 5% and 30%. So up to 30% of your processing power is chucked out the window because of this patch to fix this exploit that's been here the whole fucking time. So I want to get a new editing PC, but I'm holding off now because I don't want to buy a new processor now and then find out like a month later that they're releasing a new line of processors that's resistant to the exploit. You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather wait until there's a new manufactured line of processors that doesn't have this problem, where I don't have to hinder 30% of my fucking CPU usage. It's like, apparently there's much like RAM, random access memory, there is information and certain values stored in the processor that can be used against you. It can be keystrokes or passwords or whatever, right? Like this is all stored in some temporary storage within the processor, and it can, using these Meltdown and Spectre exploits, can be accessed and then used against you to retrieve more information, to extract money from you or blackmail you or whatever the fuck, right? So, fuck. I mean, what do you guys know about that? I mean, what's... Yo, keep your tinfoil hat on? Fuck off, tinfoil hat. I'm talking about real shit. This isn't me making up shit. So, what do you guys know about that? Like, do you guys know if there's, like, can you buy processors now that is resistant to this shit? Because I don't want to buy a new processor now if like a month later there's going to be a new line of processors. Real, actual, factual fucking shit. AMD processors are immune to Meltdown, and Spectre is overblown as fuck. Just get a Ryzen. Really? So you don't think I should get... Yeah, I mean, it's like, in terms of like building an editing PC, it seems like the i7 Intel processor is the way to go. Preferably an octa-core as opposed to a quad-core. I have a quad-core. Actually, I have an octa-core right now, but it's just, it's a low gigahertz speed. It's like 2.7 gigahertz or something like that. Whereas you can buy octa-core processors now that go... I mean, you can buy processors that are ridiculous, but like in terms of like consumer level purchasing of processors, you can get like octa-core processors that are... Well, the ones that I'm seeing are like... I have an octa-core processor that's like 2-point-something gigahertz. But what I'm seeing is like quad-core processors, so less cores, but a higher rate of hertz. So it's like 4-point-something gigahertz rather than 2-point-something gigahertz. So I don't know whether it's better to have a higher level of gigahertz or to have more cores. I mean, maybe one of you guys knows a little bit more about that can tell me one way or another. Fuck, I'm seeing all these comments and questions that have nothing to do with what I'm talking about. It feels like nobody gives a shit about what I'm saying. What do you... Fuck. I guess I'll just talk about something else then. Get 4 octa-cores? Oh yeah. Thanks, that's helpful. The reason i7 is good for that is because of hyperthreading, right? Yeah, I understand, like, multiple cores is the way to go for editing. Will the PC be purely for editing? No. But I will be using it for editing a lot. And I figure that's the way to go, right? I mean, if I'm going to be using it for my job, like, so I can edit. I mean, I'll also probably be gaming on it as well, but does that mean that I shouldn't get an octa-core then? Get a Mac, John. Oh, yeah. Did you guys see that bullshit new Apple commercial? Well, I don't know about new, but the latest commercial that Apple came out with, where you have that little girl with her Apple, her iPad, and she's doing all these things, like one scene after another where she's doing a new thing with her tablet or iPad, and then she's using it in the backyard at the end, and then her mother comes along, and she says, "What are you doing on your computer?" And the little girl goes, "What's a computer?" And I'm just like, like this idea that it's just, it goes back to that, like, Macs don't get viruses horse shit. You know what I mean? It's whatever the malware creators decide to target. You know what I mean? Mac is just as prone to that. It's just that viruses, most of them were being developed for Windows because most people were using Windows. But then Macintosh uses that to their advantage, saying, well, Apple computers are invulnerable to viruses. Get the fuck out of here. Macs don't get viruses, though. Fuck you. What's a computer? What a load of bullshit. I'll tell you what a computer is. Anything that has a fucking processor in it that computes. Kind of like, I don't know, say an iPad. Fucking retards. I hate Apple. They suck. And fucking Apple getting rid of their headphone jacks in their phones because they want to favor a futurist design where everything's super thin and every surface of it is a screen that has touch functionality and all the peripherals are wireless now. So that means, how convenient. That means that they can resell all their peripherals at an inflated price because, it's high tech now because it's wireless. Get the fuck out of here. Bullshit. What's this thing with making everything look fucking futuristic? I mean, I think Google for a while was resistant to getting rid of the headphone jacks, but I guess they had some kind of brainwashing conversation with Apple where Apple, I guess, fucking lobotomized Google employees or fucking used that Men in Black flash device on them where they're fucking brain dead now, I guess, and they've decided that omitting a headphone jack from their new line of phones is a good idea in favor of a futurist design because that's the inevitable way of the future. So everything's got to look like fucking Star Trek. Why can't you just have a device that's like, maybe it's large and it has sharp edges and it has a bunch of ports in it, but it does what you need it to do. You know what I mean? You're not wanting for like a new device that, I mean, sure, you can upgrade the device with a bigger, more efficient processor so it makes calculations quicker. But I mean, like, I don't see the advantage of just like why get rid of all these ports and shit and make everything wireless just to satisfy some kind of futurist idea, that synchronizes with what we're seeing in movies where everything looks fucking weird and curved edges and like, everything's got to look like Minority Report, It's like, fuck off with all this futurism. Who gives a fuck? Is that really a good enough excuse to, like, eliminate decades worth of headphone products that have all used the same fucking jack for God knows how long? And all of a sudden they're all just gonna go away now. All your headphones are obsolete. Everything that uses that fucking jack is obsolete. The most important part of a phone is a sound card for music. Yeah. Well, I mean, I figured the processor too, right? Although, I mean, I guess with that you reach a point of diminishing returns, like, because whatever the fastest phone processor is on the market right now will probably do everything that you would want it to. Yeah, I guess I can see that. Because a lot of people use their phones as audio devices, MP3 players or whatever. I think the future look concept has to deal with modernity. People always want to look and be modern. In the 50s, car manufacturers put fins on cars that served no purpose but that it was modern. Yeah. I mean the way you're saying it there, as well as I do, that has nothing to do with being modern. That's just vanity, shit that we think looks cool because we saw it in a movie, as opposed to something that actually like makes sense and is practical. You know what I mean? Like a phone that's all screen with curved edges and no ports in it might look futuristic and might meet some idea of what a vision of the future is based on some horseshit movie, but is it really practical? Is it futurist in the sense that it makes our lives ultimately easier and better? I don't know, because it's making all my headphone products obsolete, and maybe I don't want to be wearing wireless headphones all the time and roasting my brain in fucking cancer. You know what I mean? I mean, it's already bad enough with all the fucking wireless signals coming off everything. People are probably going to be telling me that I need to put on my tinfoil hat again, even though wireless waves are a real fucking thing. A couple kids, I think, did this horrifying school science fair project where they put some kind of organic material next to a wireless wave emitting device, and like it disintegrated the organic material essentially. Like, it was scary as fuck. And it's just like, God, this is what's happening to us on a microscopic level, all these waves coming off God knows what, because everything's fucking wireless now. Anybody who has a smart home is like, absorbing all this fucking radiation to a degree that they'll probably become a superhero. Radiation Man. Radioactive Man from The Simpsons. They're coming off everything now. Computers, dongles, phones, routers, microwaves. This is all fucking affecting us on a molecular level. We have no fucking idea. Okay, now you need your tinfoil hat for real. Why don't you fuck yourself? I'm not making this shit up. I'm just fucking crazy, right? Yeah, and the Jews control all the banks, too. John, you saying that stuff is like 50-year-olds saying cell phones cause leukemia. I'm not saying they cause leukemia, because I don't know. But I'm saying they might be causing some kind of damage in the long term. And the less we expose ourselves to these waves, probably the better it's going to work. Better we're going to be off. We're going to be better off. John, you look like the type of guy who would smash computers at Best Buy with a bat while saying, Skynet is coming. I must be crazy. John, I dropped over $2,000 Canadian on a new laptop, and you tell me this shit now? Hey, look, I mean, people have been using phones and devices for a long time now, and we're still fine. For the most part. I mean, there hasn't been a report coming out directly linking cell phone usage or, listening to your MP3 player on your phone or whatever as directly linking that to cancer or whatever horrible fucking thing. But, I think if you expose yourself to it, it causes some kind of damage. Maybe that's minuscule, marginal, small, a small enough amount of damage that you don't notice it in your lifetime, but that doesn't mean it's not there, and maybe we should be trying to limit the amount of wireless devices that we use instead of just, trying to make everything wireless just for its own sake, because that's the future, Seems like bullshit. I'm talking about the Intel processor thing. Oh, yeah. Well, didn't you hear about that? I mean, that was pretty big news. The Meltdown Spectre thing. And it's not just laptops. There's a lot of different devices that use those processors. Intel and ARM processors. They're in not just phones and laptops, but like, appliances, like in the kitchens and shit like that. They all have little computers in them that have processors that work as like the brain of the device, But, well, the thing is with them, though, that there's probably not going to be anything a value stored in the memory banks of those processors that can be used to exploit you or whatever, right? There definitely is some type of radiation from these daily use electronics. Moderation is key, but no one practices it, unfortunately. Yeah, dude. You can't come out with some new wireless device, some fancy wireless fucking thing, and expect people to use it in moderation. Like, there's always going to be one fucknut out there that overdoes it. You know what I mean? No, there was a study done by the state of California linking phone usage to cancer, John. Oh, well, shit. Yeah, well, I mean, what was the age range? I mean, at what point were they diagnosed? I mean, that I guess can just depend on biology as well. I mean, there's, you can either have a resistance to that sort of thing or maybe not, depending on your genetics. Who knows how it works? We don't know. That's the thing, And but don't you think we should know first if this shit is safe before we start giving ourselves wholeheartedly to this whole futurist movement where everything's fucking wireless and emitting waves? I mean, if those phones, Apple and Google, if they get rid of the headphone jack in their phones, that is going to force everyone to start using wireless earbuds. And if people are going to be using wireless earbuds, that is automatically right there going to expose a lot more people to wireless waves needlessly, because they already have wired headphones that they could use, probably. Go watch Black Mirror. You think I haven't watched Black Mirror? I fucking love that show. And it's an important show. I don't care that some of the episodes suck. I'm glad it exists. I just think that Charlie Brooker guy, the showrunner for Black Mirror, he's just being overworked now, coming up with these episodes, and that's why some of them suck. It's Black Mirror is it's a Netflix production now. So that means it comes out like they got to put out a new season like once a year. Whereas before it was like every couple of years, because it was based on how many good ideas that showrunner could get out, rather than just like writing around the quota of having to have a season's worth of episodes released every year. That's how you get shit episodes, as opposed to like just giving the showrunner time to come up with ideas, and then maybe a couple years pass, but then eventually there'll be a point where it's like, okay, I've got 6 solid episodes here. We can make a good season of episodes. And they put out a season and they're all good. Would you rather have that every few years, or would you rather have a season every year, but some of the episodes are dog shit, or most of them? I don't know. I think I would rather wait, to be honest. Black Mirror is feminized now. How's that? I haven't really been finding that. I mean, there's other shows like Game of Thrones where I feel like I'm being hit over the head with the whole feminist thing, but Black Mirror hasn't done that to me recently. I haven't seen all of season 4 yet. Maybe I'm missing something, but I've enjoyed season 4 so far. Even the stupid ones. Even that like memory reader one in Iceland. Like that one was kind of fucking stupid, but I enjoyed it still because it was ridiculous, Crocodile, I think it was called. John, thoughts on cryptocurrency? I think cryptocurrency is very unstable now. Well, Bitcoin is very unstable right now, but I think cryptocurrency, I think that's where we're going ultimately. So I think it's going to go back up in value. Like, it's going to spike for a while like this, but eventually it will go up. And it may be Bitcoin, it may not be Bitcoin, but it will be a cryptocurrency. And whoever controls that currency is still up for debate. But I think it will be ultimately a cryptocurrency that takes precedence over any other kind of monetary system. Because I just think that's the way the world's going. I think it's inevitable. Wouldn't it be better if everyone just judged characters based on their individual merits and not take gender into account at all? At least in an ideal world. Yeah. Yeah. I'm all for that. Gender shouldn't even factor into evaluating somebody's character. I agree. And I fucking hate this idea that, men are all evil, brutish assholes, and women are all innocent and wholesome, and, they like to look after everybody, and they're always well-intentioned. Like, that is bullshit. If you think women can't be just as self-centered and manipulative as men, you are dead fucking wrong. John, would you vlog in the suicide forest? First of all, I hate that fucking word, vlog. It's probably the ugliest word in the English dictionary, literally. But would I vlog in the suicide forest? I'm not against the idea. I would, if I saw a dead body, I would fucking film it. But I don't object to the idea of bringing a camera into that forest. Because I think it is an interesting thing. Stop being toxic, John. Now everyone's saying vlog because I said I hate that word. You guys are a bunch of fucking trolls, you know that? John, you should fuck Chris Pratt or Adam Driver. What brought that on? Just because they're popular male movie stars now, so I should go and fuck them, I guess. I still love you, John, in the gayest way possible. Oh, thanks, buddy. Is he actually gay, or did I just hear that somewhere? Who, me? Yeah, I'm actually gay. I'm gay. I'm so gay for Chris Pratt and Adam Driver and every male in this room. Wouldn't it be so great if I could just fuck men all the time? In an ideal world. John, talk about your love life. Dude, there's nothing to talk about, man. I was dating someone for a little while, but I haven't in months. Just 'cause I wasn't really crazy about that person. And though, even though I say that, that doesn't mean I don't miss their company, because I do. But I didn't feel like I was in love with them. And that particular person, I think, she really liked me, but I didn't like her quite as much, even though I really enjoyed her company and I thought she was a terrific person. But there's just that sadness, where it's just like, I really enjoy spending time with you, but I don't want to waste your time, because I knew that person she was looking for a relationship, she was looking for someone who loved her just as much as she was capable of loving another person, and I couldn't give that to her. So I didn't want to waste any more of her time. So I decided to just go it alone again. And now I've been alone for a few months, just working on my shit. And, there's a lot of free time that comes with that, which I use to work, It not being in a relationship kind of sucks, but it means that I can do all this fucked up shit, like stay up until 7 a.m. coding a video game or writing a script, you know what I mean? And I won't have some woman nagging in my ear that it's time to go to bed, or it's time to do this, or it's time to do that, or, we're going to dinner with this couple tonight, or we're going to this show tonight, or we got to do this tonight, or you got to pay more attention to me, or we got to spend more time together, shit like that, Being alone means that I can do this unhealthy, fucked up work ethic that I have, or I stay up to fucking horrible hours working. John hates women confirmed. There you go. You guys are just like, whatever opportunity you can take to take what I'm saying and then fucking turn it on its head and take the wrong message from it deliberately because it pisses me off. But whatever. I know you're just joking around. But it's just, that's all I see, It's like how people, if you consistently do a good job on something, they stop telling you that you're doing a good job all the time, and they just make jokes about how you're doing a shitty job, even though you're doing a good job and they know it, But then the person reading all the comments is just seeing stuff about how what they're doing sucks, and they're just seeing the jokes, And so all the legitimate comments about like, hey, what you're saying is interesting, or what you're doing is good, or what you're doing is like wholesome, or whatever, reasonable, or whatever. It's just like, you're not really seeing that anymore. So then you start to doubt yourself. You're just like, fuck, am I actually doing cool shit anymore? Now everyone's spamming good job. It's like, God, there's no fucking middle ground. It's one extreme or the other, It's either shit on my head or drown me in compliments, There's no fucking sense of moderation where, just some healthy middle ground where occasionally you can just go, hey, John, you're doing a good job. Oh, thanks. By the way, you're a faggot. Oh, yeah, thanks. Thanks for that, too. John, I've watched you since Mega Man in Ghost of Willamette came out. You've done a fucking good job, and I would suck your dick if you asked. Oh, thanks, buddy. I appreciate that. John, you're just being cynical and unrealistic. Oh. Well, fuck me. Moderately adequate. John, actually think about it, though. Aren't you jealous of gay people? I'm not envious of the way they've been segregated for so long, but I think they've got it. I don't want to. I worry about saying they've got it pretty good now, just because, if there's a gay person in here, they'll probably be like, what? We don't have it good. Let me tell you something about, there's still intolerance in this world. And we're just like, okay, fine. Like, you guys got it rough. Fine. But I think they've got it a hell of a lot easier than it used to be. We've made a lot of progress. You know what I mean? I think the opinion that being gay is wrong or weird or whatever is definitely in the minority now. Like, I think most people don't care or are supportive or whatever. And given that fact, yeah, I am kind of envious of gay guys. Just because gay guys are interested in other guys. And it's easy for guys to understand other guys. So I just figure, like, a gay guy understanding another gay guy is probably pretty easy, and you probably, there's a pretty good chance that you'll get along pretty well, or, you'll be able to empathize with what each of you are feeling at any given moment. You know what I mean? I mean, with men and women, it's totally fucking different. Men and women are, like, they're so different. They're different creatures. Their brains work differently. Not being mean. It's just that it's a matter of fact. They're just wildly different. And so there's always that kind of like, you're not ever going to be exactly on the same page. as, compared to, say, if you were in a gay relationship with another dude, where it's just like, yeah, he's a dude like me, so he probably likes and hates kind of the same things that piss me off or make me feel good, or, it's easy to empathize with the same sex, you know? So I just figure, gay relationships are mostly stable compared to like a lot of man-woman relationships where it's just like that gender divide is enough for, to get either side of the relationship pissed off, whether you're a man or a woman. Because I know, like, I'm not just woman hating here. I mean, like, yeah, women do shit that piss me off, but like, men do a bunch of shit that pisses women off. Like, we both do shit that pisses each other off. That's the thing, because we're different. There's no getting around that. John is misogynistic. Oh, God. Jesus fucking Christ. John hates men and women confirmed. Oh yeah, you guys got me fucking pegged. You guys got me pegged right down, don't you? You know what I'm all about. I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I'm gonna let you guys think about what you've done here today. How you've made me annoyed. Urgh. I'm so annoyed. I heard the flush. Oh, good for you. What do you want, a fucking medal? We all heard. Oh, wow. The truth is out. John urinates. Is that BBC headline worthy? YouTube personality urinates off camera. Could this be the end of John CJG? Is his career finish? Hey John, hate to spam again, but can I ask your views on vaping? Do you believe that vapes can be used as a safer form of nicotine introduction to the body? Through time, could it help reduce cancer? I don't think it's going to help reduce cancer unless you're like... See, this is the thing. You're saying you're asking if it can be used as a safer form of nicotine introduction. Whereas I would say, don't introduce yourself to nicotine at all. Because ultimately you don't want to give yourself a chemical dependency if you can avoid it, right? I mean, people turn to cigarettes because they have stress in their lives and they don't know how else to deal with it, right? This is why teenagers start smoking in school. I mean, sometimes it's just because they want to look cool, but I think most of the time it's because they're stressed out, right? Not all kids are fucking stupid. And if you're smoking a bunch of cigarettes and you're not successfully able to wean yourself off of them, then in that case, I would recommend vaping as a way to get yourself off the cigarettes, because that absolutely worked for me. I used to smoke cigarettes in film school, and I started vaping, and I stopped. And I don't think anything would have helped me. I tried gum briefly, that didn't do anything. Like, I was pretty dedicated to the cigarettes until I started vaping, and then that curbed my cravings. And then I don't smoke and I don't vape now. I don't do either. I used to vape a lot, now I don't. So like if you're not smoking, I wouldn't suggest starting to vape. But if you're like a heavy smoker and you're trying to quit, I would say definitely try the vape thing. And it'll help you quit the cigarettes. And I think you can wean yourself down to gradually less levels of nicotine in the juice that you're vaping. And eventually you can just stop smoking or vaping anything altogether. So that's what I have to say on that. Absolutely. Vaping as a weaning method is most likely the healthiest form of kicking the habit. Yeah, I agree. It's most effective. However, not the healthiest. Yes, exactly. I mean, the fact is, if you're inhaling something that's not oxygen, it's probably going to cause damage on some small level, you know? Like, it's like weed, you know? There's so many people who, like, glorify weed, and they think, like, weed is the solution to fucking everything. And if you smoke weed, it'll cure all that ails you, and you're going to be totally fucking fine and live until you're 200 years old if you're smoking weed. And, like, I go onto these forums where it's, like, because remember when I was on my podcast talking about my anxiety attack and how it was at least partially induced by THC in my system? Like, I was going on like weed forums looking for advice about like the link between anxiety and smoking too much. And everyone on those fucking forums just glorifies weed to the point where they don't even rule it as a possibility that it could be doing you any damage. They're just like, well, weed doesn't do anything bad. Like, you just got, maybe the solution is to smoke more weed. So just happy blazing, brother. It's like, fuck you. Like, I think it's just so stupid to put that kind of faith in weed. Like, I like weed. I think it's a positive thing. I think it helps a lot of people. But to assume that it's completely harmless, I think is stupid and naive. You know? Of course it does damage. I mean, but you weigh that damage against other things, you know? Some people take weed because they get, you know, epileptic seizures or tremors, or because they're in pain, you know, or they're dealing with depression, or their back hurts or something, you know? So that at that point you start weighing the, you know, the cost against the benefits. Just like, well, weed does cause a small amount of damage inhaling it, but if it makes me happy and curbs my pain, you know, enough for me to smile, you know, at some point throughout my day, then yeah, maybe it's a good thing in my life, you know? But don't just, like, assume that it's this thing that if you inhale it, it's like a fucking fountain of youth that's gonna keep you alive forever. That's fucking stupid. Of course it does damage. You know? If you're inhaling smoke or something that's not oxygen, you know? Oh god, here comes all the stoner fags. Depression is for queers. I have depression. I guess I'm a queer now. We shouldn't have stopped with 2 bombs. John, how did you get into smoking? Stress. How do you think? Ever punched someone in the face? No, I haven't. I haven't punched anybody. I was challenged to a fight and I showed up for a fight, but the other guy never showed. That was the closest I got. Your satire of teen angst in One Life Remaining really got me through those genuine teenage cringe years. 22 now, still a huge fan. Also, have you ever done any DIY construction? Not really. I mean, I mounted a TV on my wall recently, and I like used a stud finder and I drilled holes into the wall, and that's as far as my DIY activity goes. Though I'm not really much of a handy person. I'm not good with that kind of thing. I mean, I probably would be okay if I just like took some time to research it and get good at it, but I just got no desire to. It's like cooking. You know. Sorry, I was waiting for the stream to... This fucking thing. Drilled holes. Handy person. Innuendo. I get it. Am I pregnant? Can you get pregante? How is Babby formed? Ever read up on Warhammer 40k? Yeah, there was a period in my life where I knew a little bit about that. Not anymore, though. I had friends who did that. Warhammer. It's a big money investment. Like Magic the Gathering. It's like I had friends that were into Warhammer and Magic, and it was like, you can't afford both. So it's like, fuck, one or the other. And I think Magic the Gathering was the cheaper option, just because, Warhammer, you gotta buy, like, all those little hand-painted figurines and shit. Because it's like a tabletop game, right? But not like Monopoly, where you just spend $20 on a board and then you can all play and whatever. I mean, that was it's like a collectibles kind of game. More thoughts on Last Jedi? You guys want me to talk about Last Jedi? Or are there faggots in here that are going to be complaining about spoilers? Even though the movie's been in theaters for God knows how long. Talk about Last Jedi. I won't spend too much time on it, because honestly, it's kind of like, I can't remember every detail of that movie. But I remember I enjoyed it. And I remember, like, reading a lot of, like, feedback on it, like, people giving the movie shit because, like, that intro sequence, for example, where the destroyer, or whatever, the dreadnought is under attack. And they use these bombs on it, where they drop all these, like, spherical bombs on the thing, but people were complaining because there's no gravity in space, so why would the bombs fall like that? And I'm just like, dude, that's such a stupid fucking thing to get hung up on. Like, in a movie, of all things. It's like, yeah, it's space. Well, you don't think those bombs can have some kind of propulsion system built into them that make them shoot downwards relative to the positioning of the ship? Like, that's, like, who gives a fuck about that sort of thing? Like, that's the kind of thing that I was hearing a lot about when it came to, like, complaints about the movie. I was just like, that's fucking dumb. Who cares? And, like, I guess, like, the fact people were giving it flack because it was too jokey. There's too many, like, inappropriate, like, not inappropriate humor, but humor at inappropriate points in the movie. But I never found that to be the case. I thought it was pretty good. Like, because, like, it's possible to transition from serious material to jokes to serious material and vice versa, like, again and again. It's possible to do that without off-putting an audience. But there's also a wrong way to do that too, where it's just like, you watch it and you're like, the tone of this movie is all over the place. But I never found that with The Last Jedi. Like, I thought it was consistently pretty smart and, like, sensitive to the emotional happenings of what was going on in the story. And, like for instance, like, the bombing of the dreadnought, and, like, there's that sacrificial, heavy, emotional moment where it's like that girl, that Asian sister chick, she sacrifices herself to blow up the ship, and then, like, just a couple minutes after that, they follow that with the joke of, like, Finn coming out in that weird biomedical suit where there's just hissing liquid. It's like, I laughed. That was funny. And even though it so closely followed that emotional moment, I didn't feel like it was being insensitive to that emotional moment. You know what I mean? Like, because there's a certain way of doing that kind of thing where you jump from serious stuff to jokes, where it feels like the humor is coming at the expense of the film's emotional tension, right? Like, I see that a lot in movies, and it pisses me off, but I never got that feeling with The Last Jedi. I thought the gags were good. There's this one gag in the movie where it's like, the shot looks like it's a ship coming down to land, but then it cuts to a wider shot and you realize it's an iron coming down to iron the clothes of like an imperial officer or whatever. I laughed out loud. I thought that was great. I thought that was so fucking funny. And I remember, I think that got flack too. I was reading online about how that was like an inappropriate joke, and I was like, dude, that was great. Like, there's this idea that you guys have seen Rogue One, right? Star Wars Rogue One. It was a great movie, but it didn't feel like a Star Wars movie because it was missing a few essential ingredients that make a Star Wars movie what it is. You know what I mean? Like a Star Wars movie, if you're defining a Star Wars movie by the original trilogy about what made them successful, then a Star Wars movie has adventure, scope, colorful characters, quips, humor, larger than life scenarios, romance, like a lot of different emotions and lots of humor. And like Rogue One just wasn't that at all. Like Rogue One was just like deadpan, taking it so seriously. It's why a lot of people say like Rogue One was more of a Star Wars fan movie than an actual Star Wars movie. You know? Like, so in that regard, I think Last Jedi was what it needed to be. Like, I didn't want another Rogue One. Like, in The Last Jedi, I wanted humor, you know? I wanted fun. It's got to be a fun movie, you know? And I think Rian Johnson really understood that, you know? And he wanted to make the best Star Wars movie he could, and he wanted to make a movie that was fun. And I thought the introduction of Luke Skywalker was great. Fucking stream. Sorry, guys. I'm just waiting for it. I like the introduction of Luke Skywalker. I like that he just chucks the lightsaber over his shoulder. I like that it shows him drinking milk out of the tit of some fucked up alien that's living on the island. Because a big theme of that movie is this idea of legacy, and that if you see things or see people up close that have been long reputed as being of legendary status, you know, you finally see the thing up close and it's not all it's cracked up to be, you know? That's kind of a big prevailing theme of that movie. It's like Rey finally finds Luke Skywalker and he's just not all that, you know? He's just like, you know, everybody's talking about this stoic, heroic Luke Skywalker, and then Rey finally sees Luke Skywalker and he's like just this dude drinking alien tit milk, and like this crazy aging dude that's just like on his own on an island going crazy and hates the Jedi. And that was another, I think that was a huge thing about a huge source of criticism for the movie, is that I guess it tainted this idea that, you know, the Jedi was supposed to be this pristine agency that is just flawless and does nothing but good things, you know? Whereas I thought it was really interesting that the movie decided to go that route, you know, that decided to have a story that involved the Jedi not being all it's cracked up to be, you know? And it's the fact that the Jedi consists of people, and people are prone to moral decay and, you know, human urges and selfishness, just like any other individual. You know what I mean? I think a lot of Star Wars fans didn't like that. They wanted the Jedi, the idea of Luke and the Jedi, to be preserved as this like impenetrable thing that's just, you know, always good, always does good things. And these so-called fans of Star Wars hate the idea of the Jedi and Luke being tainted with, you know, the idea that it can be populated by people who are selfish and don't have the interests of the world in mind, rather than just their own, I think that's a very realistic approach, is to have the Jedi not be all it's cracked up to be, and, to be very imperfect, and just like when they brought Yoda back in that movie and they made him a puppet, that was brilliant. The fact that Yoda in The Last Jedi was a puppet and not a CGI thing like in the prequel movies. Like, they actually, even though they have the technology to do better things, they actually regressed back to the puppet just because that's what people know and like from the original trilogy. I was like, that's awesome. That was really smart, what they did. And I like that talk that they had, Luke and Yoda. Sorry about the stream, guys. It's you have no idea how fucking angry this is making me right now. It's like I'm talking, I feel like I'm on a roll, and then I glance over at the fucking thing, and it's lagging. And I'm just like, nobody's hearing what I'm fucking saying right now. But what else about Last Jedi? There was nothing about it really that stood out to me as a bad thing. I will say one thing. That one part where Carrie Fisher is stuck down into space and she uses the Force to like fly over to that ship. Like, that looked kind of weird to me. Like, I was just like that stood out to me as particularly peculiar. I was like, I mean, it's kind of cool. Like, I get kind of what, like, I kind of understand how Rian would think that might be a cool thing to do. Like, to have Princess Leia sucked out into space because the ship explodes and then the Force saves her. But it just looked weird. I don't know, man. And, like, it was especially weird because, before the movie was released, Carrie Fisher had died. I mean, they shot The Last Jedi, then Carrie Fisher died, and then they released the movie, right? So, at that point, when you have that close-up on Carrie Fisher's face just before she gets sucked out, and then she does get sucked out, you're thinking, oh, okay, well, she's gone now, and that's meant to mirror her real-life death, and at least she died for a good cause, and she's probably out of the picture now. I wasn't expecting her to do that flying to the ship thing and, living. But I guess they wrote the story and they shot all her stuff and then she died, and then they decided not to rework the story from that point. So they're just like, well, let's just go with what we shot, And so it's kind of this bittersweet thing where it's like Princess Leia, it's like, oh, great, she lived in the movie, but it's like, she's actually dead and she's not coming back for the next movie. So you're just like, you know what? She probably would have been better off just staying out there dead in space. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, man. Maybe that's just me. But like, yeah, it's tricky, You film something and you shoot something, you do all the visual effects, and then one of your lead actors dies before the third movie can be made. And then, you just got to go with what you have, the footage that you have there, And I expect that, when they start the third movie, that they're probably gonna, it might not be right at the beginning, but near the beginning, they're probably gonna have like a grave scene where, you see the grave of Leia, and you get a little exposition that reveals that she died somewhere between the events of the second and the third movie and whatever. And, that's fine. I would expect as much. I hope they don't CGI her or shit like that. I understood why they did it in Rogue One, but fuck, that looked bad. That CGI for Tarkin and Leia. It was really distracting. I was like, that looks computery as fuck. That looks fake as fuck. But, that was the only thing that stood out to me as being kind of weird. Other than that, some things felt kind of rushed. The fight between Finn and Captain Phasma. That there was like a little build up to that, and then it felt like it ended on a bit of a whimper. Like there was like 20 seconds of like cool lightsaber fighting, and then she just kind of dies because she was like she falls back on like a platform that like falls into a fiery pit, and then she's gone. It's just like, oh, I guess that's over now. Like I think she could have had a better death. But yeah, I think those were the only two things that even remotely bothered me. I thought the casino sequence where like you have all those enemies or animals breaking out and running all over the place, I thought that was kind of like, I don't know, I don't want to say lame, but just kind of like cheesy, I guess. I don't know. But it didn't off-put me to the point where I was like, I don't want to watch this movie anymore. I was just like, all right, that happened, I guess. And then Benicio del Toro's character, who I love as an actor, but like it felt like he had a very small role in the movie. I mean, I guess he's going to have a bigger role in the third one, but I would have liked to see him do some more shit. And the end of Last Jedi, I was totally on board with. I like the final confrontation. I like that. I always like this in movies where they make you feel like the end of the second act is the end of the movie. And then the third act does come along, and you're like, oh shit, the movie's not over. There's a whole other half hour here. Like, this is the real final set piece. And I'm like, this is awesome. That's the kind of feeling I got from The Last Jedi, and I was stoked. Like, that was cool. They go from all this carnage, and then they go to the salt planet conflict, which I wasn't even expecting. Like, I thought the movie was going to end, but then there's a whole other set piece at the end. I was like, oh, this is awesome. I wasn't expecting this, Because, like, with most movies, you can kind of predict, what's going to happen and at what times. Me being, like, a script writer, like, I know the tricks. I know I can, like, look at story points and usually figure out where things are going. I'm just like, okay, yeah, half hour in, this is going to happen, and then 3/4 of the way in, this terrible thing's going to happen, but then the main character's going to realize this and then do this thing. I like it when a movie can surprise me like that. That was cool. Jesus Christ, are you still talking? Yes, as a matter of fact, I am. You don't have to stick around. But anyway, I thoroughly enjoyed The Last Jedi, and I was really surprised to hear all the backlash, and I think that petition to have the movie erased from canon and redone is fucking retarded. And I don't know how I feel about the third one, because I think they got J.J. Abrams doing the third one now, right? And I think JJ's a competent director, but he's like he's gonna inevitably produce something that's very safe, I feel like he's not gonna take a risk like Rian Johnson did. I feel like JJ's gonna like do something. He's gonna do whatever Disney asks him to, And I don't know if that's gonna be a good thing or a bad thing. Rian is writing it, though, John. Also, Rian Johnson is writing the third movie, but J.J. Abrams is directing it? That's interesting. I heard that Rian Johnson is writing the new trilogy as well. Like, the new trilogy. Like, after this trilogy is done, they'll move on to another trilogy. 10, 11, 12, and Rian Johnson's gonna like write them all. I don't know. John, thoughts on Blade Runner 2049? Yeah, I talked about that, but it was great. I thoroughly enjoyed Blade Runner 2049. I had a really nice seat for it too. It was like, because the whole theater industry is fucking imploding because, so many people can stream whatever they want at home now. There's very little incentive to go to the theater unless, like all they've got going for it now is that it's a big screen and they can have comfy seating if they decide to incorporate that. And the theater that I went to did have very comfy seating. I was in this big ass fucking leather armchair with like a leg rest, a foot rest that like you could control remotely. And I was comfortable as fuck. And I had some candy there, and I was fucking sitting there for 3 hours just enjoying this fucking movie. I was like, this is great. Like, Blade Runner was definitely a long movie, but it didn't feel obtrusively long. It felt appropriately long in the sense that it was taking its time telling the story that it had to tell. And it did have a good story to tell. And it felt like a good detective story, And it felt like every shot and every scene had the breathing room that it needed. And, if that results in a 3-hour-long movie, whatever. Like, I don't really care about... I mean, if you're pushing 4 hours or something ridiculous like that, even if you're pushing 3 hours, I think that's pretty risky. But if you've got a story there that warrants that length and that is engaging all the way through, then I don't fucking care. That's fine, The last fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan was great. Best saber fight in the series, hands down. Well, yeah, is that just because there's a bunch of CGI in the background, like lava bullshit, and the fact that it's like a half hour long or something ridiculous like that? I mean, an epic fight doesn't have to be a long fight. Epic and long aren't synonymous, Epic can also be defined as the emotion that goes into it, the emotion that the characters are feeling. It doesn't have to just be that it's a long sequence, you know what I mean? I worked at a movie theater cleaning up after fuckers who leave nacho cheese on the seats. That job honestly made me hate living. Yeah, I can see how that would suck. What happened to all the character development Chief made in the previous season? This is something I've been seeing a lot, yeah. About how, I'm regressing the development of the characters, because, in Season 6, in Arby and the Chief I'm talking about, in Season 6, I had this whole, I spent a bunch of episodes dedicated to making Chief, a better Halo player for plot purposes, so that he would actually stand a chance against the threat of that season, which was Chaos Theosis. But now it's like I'm regressing character development because I have Chief sucking at Halo now. But it's like, he's been gone for 4 years, And now he's back playing Halo. Maybe he's going to suck at playing Halo, Maybe just because he was in a coma, it's not like being frozen in time or something like that, where it feels like only a second has gone by, It makes sense to me that, he would start playing Halo again and he would suck again, And plus, it's the series that Arby and the Chief was based on was literally called Master Chief Sucks at Halo. I mean, if it's a consistent fact throughout the show, from starting from one point and going onward, that Chief is good at Halo, that kind of sucks a lot of comedy out of it. You know what I mean? It's funny that he sucks at it. It's kind of it's, because it's Master Chief, because it's a toy figurine that's representative of the lead character of that franchise. The fact that he sucks at his own game is inherently amusing, I think. So, I didn't see it as taking a step backward in character development that he all of a sudden sucks now. I I mean, he's been gone for a long time, so it makes sense to me that he would be rusty, playing Halo again. It's like, if would it really be that great if I had Chief rocking at Halo and getting headshots left and right? I don't know, man. Also, remember, Chief became a better person because of that Cortana thing. Why is he still shitty? I mean, yeah, I think that's another thing that can be that can be chalked up to the time gap. You know what I mean? Like, so much time has passed, and now he's back. So he's kind of regressed to his old way of being, the way that he's always been. You know what I mean? He had a temporary epiphany when, Cortana kind of died before his eyes, or disappeared before his eyes, and he was sad. But then he blew up and was out of the picture for 4 years, and now he's back, and the first thing he wants to do is play Halo, and now he's not even thinking about Cortana at this point, Like, I just felt like that, that seems like an arbiter thing to do, is to, like, linger on the past. Like, Chief feels like a character that just keeps going forward, you know what I mean? But not in a way, like, just keeps going forward in a way that history is neglected and he doesn't learn anything. Because he's stupid. He's like a kind of a dumb character, And that's like, that kind of fuels the comedy of that character, is that he's so dim. So, like, he keeps going forward, but not in a productive way. In a way that's like, it's neglectful of all the lessons that he's been taught or he's experienced, It's like, in a sitcom, how you don't want to have your characters learn anything, otherwise the show's over, Unless you're telling a story like Breaking Bad, where, like, it's part of the show is the evolution of the characters. Like, as opposed to a show like Seinfeld, where you can't have the characters evolve, otherwise the show changes or ends. You know what I mean? Like, in order for the show to keep going, the characters have to persist in a particular state of being, They can't learn from their mistakes. Or they can't learn too much, at least, you know what I mean? But even if the characters do regress to that amount, it's not like I feel like I'm still dealing with new themes and new ideas. You know what I mean? It's like season 6 and season 7 are pretty similar in a few ways. Like, they both use the same plot devices. They both use frag ban. They both have, like, villains, like an enemy clan. But in season 6 and 7, the character dynamics are different. Like, in season 6, Chaos Theosis are, like, clear-cut bad guys. But in season 7, the toys actually make friends with these guys. And then realize later on that they can't be friends with them because they're just too different and too negative. And too, they're doing fucked up shit that the toys didn't even realize. And then they had to make the terrible decision of turning against their only friends. Like, that was the idea that felt unique to that season, that felt like, this is a story that I feel like I've got a story to tell here, Not only that, but the fact that Eugene kills himself in the end. Like, that was a big driving force of season 7, was that I wanted to tell a story about, like, an online friend who is led to inadvertently kill himself. I thought that was an interesting idea, because it's true that there are all these tragic events like suicide and whatever and murder that happen over something as trivial as video games. It's like kids lashing out at their parents, or even murdering their parents because their Xbox was taken away from them because they're just so addicted to the thing, or killing themselves over a video game. Like, it seems kind of silly when I do it in my show, but it's like, that's based off of actual shit. And people have actually killed themselves or killed other people over video games. So this is why I feel the need to, like, tell a story about it. You know what I mean? Because, like, This is shit that actually happens. You know? I don't know. What do I fucking know? So doesn't this mean Arbiter should be shit too, since he is starting over? Well, I think Arbiter's a little smarter than Chief, and, you know, he would have, like, I kind of imagine the character of Chief having a very limited memory, like a short-term memory. So, you know, if both of the toys are out of the picture for 4 years, and they both come back, it makes sense for Arbiter to, like, retain some knowledge from before, but it also makes sense for Chief to, like, forget a bunch of shit. Just because he's the type of character that doesn't learn from his mistakes. That's kind of what makes him funny. It's part of what makes him funny, you know? And, like, once Chief starts, like, learning from all his mistakes and being a cool guy, the show's kind of over, you know? It's just like, what people ask me, like, why don't you have Chief finally learn from his mistakes? I'm just like, well, you're asking me to end the show then, you know? It's like, what do you want? Do you want more episodes? Make up your fucking mind, you know what I mean? John, do you think you're gay? No, I don't think so. Although most of my fans would probably disagree with you. Eugene didn't exactly kill himself over a video game. His sister died, his girlfriend... Yeah, I know. I mean, think about who you're talking to here. I wrote the fucking story, I know. But, like, on a surface level, that's what I'm getting at, is that, you know, it was like, it was his friends getting banned, you know, and the toys kind of striking back at Eugene and his gang that kind of pushed him over the edge. So in a way, it was like he was killing himself over as something as trivial as a video game, you know? Even though there were definitely other factors at play, like his sister dying and shit like that, you know? But even so, his suicide was still portrayed as, like, in-game footage, you know? Like, he had Halo loaded up, and he was in an online match and had his avatar loaded up into a match as he had a gun to his head off camera and shooting himself, you know? Any chances of you doing a writing class sometime? I'd love to hear a piece on dialogue and characters from you. Yeah, sure, I can do that. I was talking with my mom the other day about becoming a teacher. I was like, fuck, I don't know. I mean, I have no education training, but I have an idea of how I would go about teaching a class. And as naive as that idea probably is, it's probably a damn sight fucking better than the ideas that my real teachers had about what it means to teach a class. You know what I mean? I had teachers in film school who didn't have a fucking clue what they're doing, because they were industry veterans who were good at making films, or whatever their role was on a film set, and they were just kind of pulled off set and thrown into a classroom environment because they were good at what they do. And they were like, okay, just teach that to kids. Without realizing that teaching to kids is a completely different fucking skill set, you know? So, even though I have no training as to how to teach children, I think I would do a damn sight better job of it than a lot of the teachers that I had, because I know that they don't know how to, like, articulate and convey information in a way that students will appreciate and understand and interpret, you know? Like, you have to appeal to their interests as children, or whatever their age is, you know what I mean? Yeah, maybe I'm not completely in touch with the youth demographic nowadays, but, like, I probably have a much better idea than my actual teachers, you know? I don't, like, I'm not against the idea of fucking teaching a class or something. I would actually love to do that sort of thing. But it's just like, you can either, I might even do it eventually, just because, like, you can either go into a teaching position after getting training as a teacher, or earning a bunch of money in a certain field, and then just being thrown into a classroom environment because it's presumed that you know what you're talking about. You know, like if you're successful and you have money, that automatically means apparently that you can go into a classroom and know how the fuck to talk to kids and teach them. I think I might do a decent job of it. Like even if I was just brought in for a day to like do like a lecture, like a 1 day lecture, like here's what I do, here's like how I did it, here's what not to do. There's so many people, there's so many kids nowadays who like don't have a clue what the fuck they want to do, and like a lot of them want to be like SoundCloud rappers and shit. Just like, well, do you know what that takes? Like, it's one thing to say you want to be a SoundCloud rapper, but like, do you realize what it means to be a content creator online? Like, I'm not building it up to be this noble fucking thing that, like, I'm just saying that it's difficult and it has a cost. More costs than you would probably imagine right off the bat. I mean, for one, the isolation. Like, I was so caught up on working with on RB and the Chief for so long that it came at the cost of my social life. And it made me feel depressed and isolated. Like, there's that, and the fact that you gotta be constantly making shit. Like, you can't just make one thing and put it on the web and expect to be set for life, Like, you gotta keep doing it, and the fact that the market is so oversaturated with content. Like, even me, for as long as I've been doing this shit, I'm having a terrible time trying to stand out. Just because there's so many people shouting over the web, like, look at me, look at my show, look at my show. That's all fucking YouTube is. Just one guy shouting over the next guy. Watch my content. Subscribe to my channel. Watch my thing. Teaching takes good improv and articulate disposition, and you've got that hands down. Oh, thanks, man. I agree, though. You got it. Like, if you're good at improvisation, then I think that's a big part of what goes into being a teacher. Because if you don't know how to improvise, and you go into a classroom with like a set plan of what you want to talk about, what happens when a student asks a question and throws a wrench into your whole plan, and then you've got to suddenly rework your whole lesson plan? It's like, okay, well, how can I answer his question and then go from there? Like, I think that throws off a lot of people. Whereas if you have somebody who's good at improvising, they can take that question and be like, well, that's an interesting question. Well, here's the answer. And then kind of go from there. I think that's a very valuable skill to have. John, thoughts on Tweak and Craig fan art literally making the characters gay? Do you think that they are just pandering to their audience too much, even though it was probably my favorite episode? Dude, who cares? I know what you're talking about. But, like, that was just one episode of South Park out of, like, how many has there been? 200 or something? I liked that episode, though. I thought it was funny. Well, John, you're definitely a pioneer of the Halo genre. What the fuck does that mean? Halo isn't a genre. Halo is a franchise that is part of the sci-fi action drama. Or not, sci-fi action genre. Halo is not a genre. I hate that this, like, the thing I specialize in, or have specialized in for so long, is so vaguely understood. Like, nobody knows what to call what I do. Like, they either call it just Halo, or machinima, or video game movies. Whatever it is, it's not real film, and it's not a video game either. So it's like somewhere in between this indefinable space, Like, what does he do, really? This is why I hate telling people what I do for a living. So what do you do, John? You're like on YouTube or something? don't you think it's cool? If people don't know what to call your content, that means it's unique, right? Well, I mean, I guess. I don't know. It's not like what I do is that alien either. I mean, it's just like, it's still filmmaking. It's just like relatively lazy filmmaking, where I have omnipotent control over the camera, and I can put the avatars wherever I want and make them whatever I want them to be, and structure environments however I want, and I don't have to worry about securing live action locations or hiring actors or shit like that. Wouldn't you just call it animation? I guess, but then I would have all the animators pissed off at me because they would be going, "That's not real animation. It's not real film, and it's not real animation either. So what the fuck is it?" Because real animation would be defined as animators probably as something that you animate yourself frame by frame, hence the term animation. But what I'm doing isn't exactly animation, because all the animating actually that I record has been done. It's already there. You know what I mean? Like if I move an avatar in Halo, that's a walk cycle that's already been animated by other people. The animators that they had on staff working for Bungie, or in this right now 343, their animators actually animated those models, and I'm just taking advantage of that. I'm just building on top of that. You know what I mean? I'm just framing all the assets and the avatars in a unique way and telling my own story on it. You know what I mean? It's a puppet show with game footage. That is really it. Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much it. Do you think the series will die out soon? Well, my series? I think after I finish this 8th season, I'll do something else. I might actually even go into game dev, just because I've been working on my Polyfrost game, and I've actually been really enjoying it. As much of a headache as it is, I'm actually enjoying my time developing it, and it's exciting to see it come along, one step at a time. And if I could make a decent game to put out on Steam, like, that would be fucking awesome. And then any revenue I get from that, I can use to make a better game, or fund like a better series or something. I might move on to a live action series or something like that. That would be cool. John, how did you learn to make code? I'm not making code. I'm writing in a code that was already made. There's other people, that much smarter people than me, that make these programming languages. And there's a whole bunch of different programming languages. And I only am familiar with a few of them. And right now, I'm working with GameMaker Studio, and GameMaker Studio has its own markup language. I've been meaning to fuck around with Unity too. I heard Unity was good for making games, but I think that's more of the go-to choice when you're making 3D games. And then if you're making 2D games, it's better to just stick with GameMaker, even though it's a little more simplistic than Unity. I think Unity uses C++ as its programming language, but GameMaker Studio has its own language that's called, I think, GameMaker Markup Language, GML. Steam is an unreliable gamble these days, though. Oh, what would you recommend over Steam, then? Like, in terms of, independent game releases. Like, I figured Steam was the best option. So, is there a better option than Steam out there? Will you still stream for us? Don't leave me like my daddy. What do you mean, like years from now? Yeah, I'll probably still stream. I like doing this. This is cool. I'm rarely in the mood for it, but like today I'm in the mood for it, and I am enjoying doing this right now. John, do you think I should pursue writing a book? Don't know anything about that business, or know anything about that business? Tips or advice? I've actually been thinking of doing the same thing. Writing a book. I've gotten advice saying that I should turn Polly Frost into a book, rather than trying to sell it as a Netflix series or whatever. That I should start off by making it a book, and then later translate it to an animated series if, it picks up traction, Yeah, Steam is top tier. Switch is best in indie market. As in the Nintendo Switch? Like the Nintendo Switch, like Nintendo's online store? Is that what you're talking about? Or like... Because you're saying Switch as if, like, it's synonymous with Steam, but Steam is a software platform. Switch is hardware, right? Unless Switch has its own exclusive store and I'm just not getting it? I don't know. I wouldn't worry about releasing on Steam, it's fine. Yeah, I figured as much. What small and irrelevant details of your past content have you messed up that still haunt you to this day? There's one shot in an episode of season 6 of Arby and the Chief that really bugs me. It's so stupid too. Like, if I mentioned it, you probably wouldn't even know what I'm talking about. But it's this one shot on the map, Highland, where, like, it's a shot through a building window, and then to follow a player exiting the room, it quickly does this pan like this. Like, the camera rotates and pans. And it's so quick and jarring. And every time I see that shot, I'm just like, what the fuck was I thinking? That sucks. Shit like that. But that's just so... I mean, that's really all I can think of, though. That doesn't mean to say that actually, like... I don't wake up screaming in the middle of the night because of that shot. You know what I mean? It's just like... If I had to think of a shot that I look back on and I regret, it's probably that one. Pull out the toys and shove them up your fucking ass. Great, yeah, I'll get on that.